Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS Inform. I'm your host, Bill Potter. Well, tonight we start with our session of legislative sessions as Senator Mark Messmer, District 48, joins us in the studio. He'll update us every Friday now through the end of the sessions, which is sometime in April.
End of April.
End of April. And we'll be talking about what is happening in the state Senate and possibly a little bit of what happens in the House as well. Senator, welcome to the show.
Great to be here as always. I always enjoy my Friday broadcasts and keeping you up to date on what's happening at the State House.
We really appreciate it. And let's start off with, I guess not a whole lot has happened since you're really 1 week into session.
Correct. So we started last Thursday, January 3rd, and that day was basically allowed all the bills that have been filed up to that point. We went through the first three, what we call bill list, and those bills got assigned, to committees last Thursday. So a few committees started meeting this week, maybe, a fourth of the committees went ahead and had hearings and passed some bills out of committee. But the rest of the week, Monday through Thursday, was really, I would say the majority of bills got filed, this week. I had several bills that I filed on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to finish the ones that I was going to submit for session. And we probably had a couple hundred bills filed, as of last Thursday. There's over 600 bills in the Senate filed now. At least the last count I saw was in the 600s. And so, there are probably 700-800 bills total on the Senate, probably close to that, same number on the House side. And so then the process of getting them all distributed to committees will be wrapped up this week. Next week, things will be more, full schedules of committee hearings. And we'll run that through the end of February, dealing with Senate bills in the Senate and House bills in the House. And then that first week of March, first couple of days of March, we wrap up, all of our action on final passage of bills in their House of Origin, and then starting the first week of March, the bills, change chamber, and we start the second half of session.
Start passing some bills, basically.
Yes, yes. Things will start to get their final form, and at this point, it's a lot of reading and looking at the bills that are coming to my committees and starting to read through them before committee hearings and decide which bills that have come to my committee, which ones I'm going to hear, and then as you get your bills assigned to a committee. If you really want to have a chance of your bill, getting heard in committee, you really need to take that time over this last week and next week, and go talk to the chairman, explain your bill, make sure they understand it, and plead your case to get a hearing. Because most committees, you have way more bills filed, than you have time, to deal with. You'll have usually 2 to 3 times as many filed as you can process. Mm-hmm. So you just have to then look through them and get down to your most important legislation that's been assigned to your committee that you think you want to move, and then start the process of hearing them and amending them. Usually the heavy work of amending should happen in a committee, because in the committee it's where you can take testimony from the public, experts, agency heads, people that have interest in it, maybe the people that in your community that brought the issue to you, gives them a chance to come and testify, in person. And that's the time when you should really do the heavy work of looking at a bill and making adjustments. And sometimes the amendments that have been requested before you get there, and sometime the day you hear it, you'll kind of get a feel for what needs to be fixed, and then you'll hold it for a week and bring it back the next week for amending. Sometime that amendment can be done, on the floor the following, the following week if it's not too major. But that's the time you really want to get down and knock down the details of what's good or bad in a piece of policy.
Now this is going to be a long session. Last year was a short session. So you have a list of some things that will be coming up this year.
Yep.
Number one, the budget, because this is a budget year.
Well, the only thing we have to do once every 2 years is pass a budget. So, if we didn't do anything else this year, and the budget will consume the lion's share of the time, the first half in the House and the second half in the Senate. It'll be the last thing we complete, on the last day of session and at the end of April. It'll take, hundreds of hours of hearing time and amendments and the time that we'll spend in caucus talking through how we want to prioritize that. The governor outlined his budget yesterday, released it to the public, and that's kind of the initial framework. But being a budget year, the number one priority. The majority of our budget is spent on K through 12 education. So it's always really our number one priority. It's our number one budget item within the budget. But there'll be some other and really an item that came up the last 2 years. The Department of Child Services in our last budget cycle used up their entire budget 1 year into a 2-year budget. And so then we had to transfer money from other agencies to keep them afloat. So part of what we're going to look at is what's causing that large of an increase in spending within Department of Child Services. I mean, it's not just the caseworkers; it's programming that they approve to be sent to families and children that are within the DCS oversight. We've got probably 2 to 3 times the amount of children in Department of Child Services management than any state around us, and spending probably double to triple in actual costs of any state around us. So there's something a little odd that we've seen that big of an increase. Every state's dealing with the opioid addiction problem. I mean, we're dealing with it. Every community, every state in the U.S. is dealing with it. How that's led to the great expansion of their program services that they're doling out. We're going to take a hard look at that, at least on the Senate side, and have some bills dealing with how they get kids into the system. Maybe not move them into the DCS management quite so quickly. Try to do a larger perspective view on what they're doing and how they're doing it, and can there be some money saved there? So their ask within the budget, if we gave them everything they want, there wouldn't be any more money to do anything for anybody else. Well, we do have K through 12. We have other expenditures and other justifiable programs that that have a request for for additional funds. So we've got to balance all that out. So there'll be a lot of give and take, and I think the basic framework that the governor submitted is pretty good. I think there's been pretty positive response to keeping the budget balanced. We do have now a constitutional requirement to pass a balanced budget, which is good for the taxpayers. We had we had more money come in during the last budget session than we anticipated. There was $178 million additional dollars came in over that 2-year window. So we do have extra money from last budget that we can put in place to help bridge some of the shortfall that we expect because of DCS within that. So that's good news, and the growth in income over the next 2 years looks like it's going to grow a little quicker than it has the last 5 to 10 years each year of the biennium. But when we have another $450 to $500 million of requested revenue spending in DCS, that puts a lot of pressure everywhere. So we'll work on that. Next big item that we'll deal with is going to be school safety issues. During the last budget cycle, we had $30 million that we approved in the budget in 2017. Last year, we put an extra $6 million into the grant programs that can be given to schools to put more security measures on their facilities, or hire resource officers, whatever they want to use it for. We had $50,000 grants per school corporation that we've been giving out. We bumped that up during our special session last year. We'd like to keep that $36 million that we had in with that extra money in this year's budget, and look at how we can give schools more flexible access to to capital funding dollars, to do that quicker than, we can't fund it all from the state. We're helping with where we can, but to try to give schools the ability to to get property tax dollars. That's usually what funds all of the capital expenditures within a school district, and let them have more flexibility to get that school safety improvements done faster. So, and along with that, there's other issues as part of school safety and security, mental health issues that kids deal with are usually anybody that does, that's been involved with a school shooting or any kind of issues with shootings in the public at large. Anytime that happens, it usually boils down to that person had some mental health problems they were struggling with. So giving schools better tools to work with that, it will be part of that. Continue to work on workforce development issues to help retrain adult workers. Get kids that are in high school now and kids that are going into Ivy Tech or VU type vocational programs. Give everybody more tools to get workers retrained to help get job demands filled. I think there's an estimated 60 to 80,000 unfilled jobs in Indiana right now. So but a lot of those are in high tech careers that whether we can retrain adults or get kids into that vocational track a little quicker. All that's going to continue to move forward this session.
Okay. And then other issues that there might be?
There's always some things that pop up. Those were the things we knew were coming. Things always, as that interim committee time, rolls around, and issues that pop up. Some of them within our district and people across the state. A couple issues that have surfaced that'll probably be pretty significant issues to deal with. One is the issue of extraterritorial private property rights. Cities have a 2-mile zoning authority outside their cities, and done to kind of control sign issues and building permit issues. So things that are built close to the city, comply with the zoning rules within the city. But some cities have taken that taken what they see as loopholes in our statutes, and I think where the loophole where they think they've got justification, if a city service goes out outside the city limits, they want to take the 2 miles from maybe where a water utility has been extended outside the city, and then go 2 miles from that water utility or sewer utility. So they're nothing in code has given them that ability, and then some cities are just flat out saying we're going to go 10 miles outside our city and try to deal with water accessibility control. And if a city goes out 2 miles, 3 miles, 10 miles outside a city, with zoning control, in most cities that'll take you to the end of the county. And nothing in statute has ever been intended to give them that much zoning control. So it'll be addressed this session. I know Senator Boots has a bill dealing with that, and it's become a pretty big issue. Typically the ones who are impacted from that have been the farmers, and they've been hollering about this for several years. Well, now the manufacturers and the Chamber of Commerce and several other industry groups are saying this is beginning to be a problem in a lot of broad ways across the state. The city of Boonville last year passed an ordinance that said we're going to go out 3 miles outside our city and ban any ability to do coal mining. Well, they have a 2-mile buffer, but they decided to go 3, and it ended up going to court. They ended up losing their court case, but it's happening, all over the state. So we're going to deal with that. And then an issue that started to come up here, again, primarily led from the agricultural community, but Massachusetts and California both have passed laws that require Indiana to comply with their farming rules to be able to ship into their states. Okay. And that might be a reasonable expectation, for them. But what they're requiring is their inspectors come into Indiana and inspect the facilities. So we've got the USDA already, with oversight over all of those operations. We've got our Indiana Board of Animal Health that has oversight that works with the USDA. But now we could potentially in that same food business have inspectors from 50 states coming in. on top of our own inspectors and on top of the U.S. inspectors, and that just gets to be unmanageable. So we're going to have a bill that'll deal with requiring those outside states, come up with contract working agreements with our Board of Animal Health, and not have 50 different inspectors, coming into our agricultural operations and just being in, an unmanageable situation.
Well, there is always so much to talk about. You'll join us again next Friday?
Absolutely.
All right,
Look forward
next Friday
to it.
we'll touch on some more topics and see what's happening in legislation.
Great.
But really right now, just mostly getting things organized and moving forward.
Getting settled in and next week will get real busy.
All right, well, Senator, thank you very much
My
for coming
pleasure.
in. Our guest has been State Senator Mark Messmer, representing District 48. Thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We're local people watching local people.